He can nominate anybody he wants. But is Barack Obama going to pick a running mate who complements his policymaking or a vote winner? The battle for vice president has begun. This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome. I'm Jane Dutton. Barack Obama may well have made up his mind already. He is expected to parade his running mate this weekend, but John McCain isn't likely to announce his vice president till much later this month. The US vice president is only a heartbeat away from one of the toughest and the most powerful jobs in the world. So how is the candidate for this role selected? Choosing a running mate is the sole right of the presidential nominee. The presidential candidates pick their running mates for a variety of reasons. The aim is often to bring a wider appeal to the campaign, to balance the ticket. For example, a Liberal candidate may pick someone more conservative, or a candidate may choose someone to win the support of a specific state or region. John Kennedy of Massachusetts did exactly that when he selected Texan Lyndon Johnson in 1960. An older candidate may consider choosing a younger running mate to counter worries about age. A less experienced politician might select a more seasoned running mate. Sometimes the choice is made in an attempt to appeal to a particular demographic, ethnic or financial group. Well, the list seems endless, but it could be based on something as simple as the two candidates getting along and trusting each other. Isn't that a novel idea? Let's take a quick look at Obama's possible choices in no particular order. New York, Senator Hillary Clinton. She was his main rival for the Democratic nomination. She's also a popular senator from one of the largest states and was First Lady for 8 years. Her selection would be seen as an effort at party unification. Her appeal with white working-class voters and women would likely boost Obama's support among key constituencies. There's Joe Biden, senator from Delaware for more than 30 years. He is the chairman of the Senate's Committee on Foreign Relations. Then we have Tim Kaine, governor of Virginia, which hasn't voted for a Democratic president since 1964. As a former Catholic missionary in Central America, he could help Obama win religious voters as well. There's also the popular Indiana senator Evan Bayh, who was a prominent supporter of Hillary Clinton. He could also help heal wounds created by the bruising Democratic primary season. And finally, there's Republican Senator Chuck Haglis from Nebraska. He's been an outspoken opponent of the war in Iraq and has strong foreign policy credentials. Well, joining us now are our guests in Los Angeles, California, Dan Cohen. He's the founder of vicepresidents.com. That's a web magazine dedicated to providing information on America's #2. Also in Los Angeles, Earl Afari Hutchinson, an expert on African-American issues and author of the book, The Ethnic Presidency, How Race Decides the Race to the White House. And in Denver, Colorado, David Serrato. He's a journalist and a two-time New York Times best-selling author. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. Mr. Cohen, who do you think Obama is going to pick? Who's going to be standing next to him on Saturday?
Well, it is the critical choice for Barack Obama, and he's been waiting about 4 or 5 months now to make it. I think there's no doubt the media believes Joe Biden has an upswing. I think Hillary Clinton will not be chosen. However, there's always the media and the polls that have come out just recently in the past couple of days showing that Senator Clinton actually would give Barack Obama a huge boost. When push comes to shove, Barack Obama has to make a choice that helps define who he is. That means he can choose somebody who specializes in change and carries that message and brand forward, or he can choose somebody with that strong foreign policy experience, mentorship, and experience in government and in the Senate.
And of course, Hillary Clinton is not necessarily linked to change. Mr. Hutchinson, black man, white woman, surely a winning combination?
Not necessarily. Remember, there's certain novelty to the Obama campaign. The first time that we've had a legitimate, credible, all due respect to Jesse Jackson, but someone who can cross a lot of different lines, presidential candidate who happens to be African American. So there's still some getting used to with a wide segment, a wide body of the American voting public. So now, let's say another what if, a Hillary Clinton. Now you're asking a wide body of the American public to get used to something else in terms of not only race, but also the gender factor too, an African American and a woman, albeit certainly one who is very, in many circles, very well thought of, very credible, and very knowledgeable politically and experienced and seasoned. So those things have to count for something, but I just feel at the end of the day, that's not quite the balance at this point in time that the Democratic Party and certainly Barack Obama would be served well by it. I think they'll look beyond the Hillary Clinton.
Okay, if that's too shocking a combination, then who do you think he's going to go for?
Well, I think at this point in time, I have to look at one thing. One of the major, actually two of the major areas that John McCain and the GOP, they've hammered Barack Obama on continually from day one, and it's accelerated in recent weeks. Namely, A, he's inexperienced, and B, national security and foreign policy. He's certainly a neophyte there. He's in kindergarten on the learning curve. And in some ways, that's had some resonance. So I have to think he's got to look at someone that's going to be able to parry that attack point that the GOP and McCain are coming at. It could be an Evan Bayh, or it could be a Tim Kaine. I thought actually Jim Webb, now he's already said, the senator from Virginia, he's already said that he's not interested in the vice presidency, but I always thought a Jim Webb type or even a Sam Nunn type from Georgia. Strong defense, national security credentials, a lot of experience, the age factor there, and also a wide appeal to a broad segment of mid-America. I thought he would be the more logical and comforting and also balanced candidate on the ticket.
Mr. Soweto, what do you make of all that? And if he has suffered a few foreign policy blunders, surely he will be looking for a vice president who will fill in all those gaps.
Well, I certainly think that he wants to fill in as many gaps as possible. The problem is he doesn't want to undermine his message of change. It's tough to put Sam Nunn or a Joe Biden on the ticket, people who are basically part of the Washington establishment, and say that your candidacy represents change. I have asked the question in some of my newspaper columns, why nobody's talking about Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. I mean, here's a guy who was served 14 years in the United States House of Representatives on the House International Relations Committee, who just won by double digits in Ohio, the most important state politically in the United States, and somebody who really does represent the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. I mean, the whole key here for Obama is to pick somebody who does not say or personify more of the same. If Barack Obama is one thing, he represents change. Picking somebody who says that actually he doesn't represent change, I think is a very dangerous thing.
Mr. Cohen, tell us about the thinking in this possible choice. There's some suggestion that he could look towards the Republicans for his running mate, Senator Chuck Hagel. Is that a possibility?
Well, it is a possibility, and I think your guests have it right on the money. Barack Obama has been talking about change. He's been trying to push this message of being different, of coming forward much like Bill Clinton did in 1992 with a new direction. And therefore, when you try to build a brand around change and a message of being different and moving forward, it's very difficult to choose, say, a Chuck Hagel of Iowa, the Republican. It's tough with Joe Biden, tough with Hillary Clinton, because they are entrenched in the American political system. Even a Chuck Hagel, a Republican from Iowa, he doesn't quite provide the vision of a new generation of change like an Evan Bayh might do or a Tim Kaine would do for Barack Obama. And it's also interesting, last point on that in many ways the vice presidential choice may or may not add votes for Barack Obama. Very few folks over the years have voted for number 2. And therefore, when you make your choice for vice president, as Barack Obama must do, he really needs to say to himself, am I going to win a state or a region because of the person I'm choosing, or am I going to help solidify me and my brand of change?
And Mrs. Soweto, I saw you nodding in agreement there. I mean, just before I went on air, I read a website which said, I mean, we're getting so excited about the vice president. Should we be excited? Should we care? Are the voters really interested in who is the vice president?
Well, I think it's a good question. I mean, the vice presidency is an office with almost no power, and I think that the media's speculation on who's going to be vice president certainly, not surprisingly, overstates, I think, the importance of the office and the importance of the office in the minds of voters. That said, I do think that it's correct that this is a branding question. Bill Clinton didn't pick Al Gore to win a state or a region. Bill Clinton picked Al Gore because he thought that sort of youthful message, that youthful ticket, presented the right message. You could make a case, and I certainly believe it, that Al Gore, when he chose his vice president, made one of the worst choices in vice presidential selection history. He chose Joe Lieberman, a guy who really undermined, I think, Al Gore's candidacy. Basically said to the Democratic Party that he needed to rely on, that he was basically picking one of the most conservative Democrats out there. I think it undermined his candidacy. So I certainly think they can be important, but I will say this. First and foremost, what you want to do is not undermine your own brand, and secondly, you want to make a safe pick, somebody who's not going to drag your ticket down.
Okay, Mr. Hutchinson, how do you think Obama's choice of vice president will affect what John McCain does next?
Well, remember, when you're talking about picking vice presidents, you're really looking at a chess match. Point, counterpoint, tennis match, chess match, or checkmate. But, I'd like to say a couple of things, and I'll come back to that. One, I disagree about the change part of it. I think when you really pay close attention to what's happened over the last couple of months, I don't hear Barack Obama talking about change anymore. I hear him talking about a lot of other things: national security, defense, tax cuts. I hear him talking about traditional kinds of things. What typically happens in American politics, presidential politics, Democrats, especially novel Democrats coming on the scene, they run to the left and they move very quickly to the center. Republicans run to the right, they move to the center, and it has to be that way for this reason. The American public does not elect presidents on the extremes. The American public, the heart and soul of the American voting public, is conservative, centrist, and traditional. All the talk about change is just that. At the end of the day, you're going to see two very traditional candidates, Republican, Democrat, president and vice president. Even the lines are becoming more and more blurred on the major issues. Hard to tell the difference on some of the things that these two individuals are talking about. Now, when you come to the vice presidency, I think it is critically important this time. I don't think we can minimize that. It's not so much about not undermining. It's not so much about hurting. It actually is about winning, because you have two very unique candidates, two very unique situations. Typically in an election, it wouldn't make any difference if one had just distanced himself from the other. That hasn't happened this time. Two different styles, two different approaches, two different personalities, and two different philosophies. So all of that being said, you're going to have real balance. It does make a difference in who the vice presidency is. I don't just think it's media talk here. I think it's real politic at play. And I think both of these individuals actually understand the importance of how and what and who a vice president is and what that person can bring to the ticket, namely a winning edge to the ticket.
And you got a name for John McCain?
Mitt Romney.
Right, let's leave it there. We're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, what does the vice president actually do? And is it really a fast track to the White House? Stay with us.